I never meant to become the guy who goes to the dog park at exactly 6:15 every evening. It just sort of happened. 3 months ago, I adopted Bailey, this ridiculous golden retriever mix who has more energy than a small nuclear reactor, and the dog park became our routine. Our sanctuary, really. Bailey would chase tennis balls until his tongue hung out like a pink flag of surrender, and I would stand there with my coffee, pretending to check my phone while actually just decompressing from another day of corporate emails and fluorescent lighting. That's when I first noticed him. He was sitting on the bench near the water fountain, the one under the oak tree that drops acorns like tiny bombs all autumn long, dark hair that fell across his forehead in a way that seemed both deliberate and completely accidental. He wore this olive-green jacket that had seen better days, the kind of worn-in comfortable that you can't fake, and he was watching the dogs, just watching them with this small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. I didn't think much of it that first day. Dog parks attract all kinds. Some people come for their dogs, some come for the community, some come because it's free entertainment better than anything on Netflix. I threw the ball for Bailey, he brought it back covered in drool and grass, and we went home. But then I saw him again the next day, same bench, same jacket, same quiet smile, and I realised something strange. I didn't see a dog with him. Maybe his dog was playing, I thought. Maybe he had one of those independent dogs that doesn't need constant supervision. A husky off making friends or a terrier digging holes in the designated digging area. But as Bailey and I made our rounds, as I threw the ball and watched my dog bound after it with the grace of a drunk giraffe, I kept glancing over. And I never saw him with a dog. Never saw him call to one or fill a water bowl or pick up after anything. The third day I decided I was being weird. Creepy even. Why did I care if some guy wanted to hang out at a dog park? Maybe he was a dog walker taking a break. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he just liked the atmosphere. I had no reason to be this curious about a complete stranger, except I was curious. Deeply, annoyingly curious. By the end of the first week, I'd started timing our visits around when I thought he'd be there. I told myself it was coincidence. Bailey needed his exercise at 6:15 specifically. It had nothing to do with the guy on the bench who showed up at 6:20 without fail, and stayed until the sun started its descent behind the apartment buildings that bordered the park. His name was Silas. I learned this by accident 2 weeks in, when another regular, Martha, with her 3 yappy corgis, called out to him. Silas. It fit him somehow. Unusual, but not trying too hard. He waved at her, and I saw his hand, long fingers, the way he moved with this careful deliberateness, like someone who thought before acting. I'm Ethan, by the way, and I'm not usually like this. I don't fixate on strangers. I don't build elaborate scenarios in my head about people I've never spoken to. But there was something about Silas that hooked into my brain and wouldn't let go. Maybe it was the mystery of why he came every day without a dog. Maybe it was the way he seemed perfectly content in his own company, not scrolling through his phone, not reading a book, just existing in the moment. Or maybe it was simpler than that. Maybe it was the way my stomach did this stupid little flip every time I rounded the corner and saw him already there, waiting. 3 weeks in, Bailey made the decision for me. My dog, who usually has the attention span of a goldfish on espresso, suddenly became fascinated with Silas. We were doing our usual routine when Bailey just stopped mid-fetch, ball hanging from his mouth, and trotted directly over to the bench. Before I could call him back, he dropped the ball at Silas's feet and sat, tail wagging, looking up with those big brown eyes that have gotten him approximately 1 million extra treats. I jogged over, embarrassment heating my face. Sorry, I said. He's usually not this forward with strangers. Silas looked up at me, and I got my first real look at his eyes, grey-blue, like the ocean before a storm. He smiled, a genuine one that reached those eyes, and bent down to pick up the ball. It's okay, he said. His voice was quieter than I expected, a little rough around the edges. I like dogs. He threw the ball, a perfect arc that sent Bailey scrambling. I stood there awkwardly, knowing I should walk away but rooted to the spot. So, I managed, "Where's your dog?" The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Too direct, too nosy. But Silas just laughed. This soft sound that felt like a secret. "I don't have a dog," he said simply. "Oh!" I waited, but he didn't elaborate. Bailey returned, dropped the ball at Silas's feet again, and the whole thing repeated. "I'm Ethan," I finally said. "Silas." He threw the ball again. "I know. I've seen you here every day for 3 months." That admission hung in the air between us. He'd noticed me too, been aware of me the same way I'd been aware of him. Something shifted in my chest, a gear clicking into place. "You come here every day," I said, "without a dog." He nodded, watching Bailey bound after the ball. "I do." "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment. Bailey returned, and this time Silas scratched him behind the ears before throwing the ball. When he finally answered, his voice was so soft I had to lean in to hear. "Because you do." The world narrowed to just us. The sounds of the dog park, the barking and laughing and squeaking toys, all faded into white noise. My heart was doing something complicated in my chest, a rhythm I didn't recognize. "What?" Silas looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw vulnerability there, raw and honest. "I noticed you the first day you came here," he said. "You were wearing a blue sweater and you looked exhausted, but you were smiling at your dog like he was the best thing that ever happened to you. And I thought, that's someone who knows how to love something completely. I came back the next day hoping to see you again, and you were here. So I kept coming back. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process. This beautiful stranger had been coming to a dog park every single day for 3 months just to see me. Not to talk to me, not to approach me, just to exist in the same space. It was the most romantic and slightly stalkerish thing anyone had ever done, and I didn't know whether to be flattered or concerned. I started, then stopped. "That's kind of intense." "I know." He looked away, back to where Bailey was now playing with a poodle. "I'm not good at this, at talking to people, at taking chances. I kept thinking I'd work up the courage to say something, but every day I'd chicken out. I figured eventually you'd stop coming, or I'd stop being such a coward, or the universe would intervene somehow. I didn't expect your dog to be the universe." A laugh bubbled up out of me, unexpected and genuine. Bailey's always been a good wingman. I sat down on the bench next to him, not too close but close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woodsy and clean. "So now what?" "Now," Silas said, turning to face me, "now I'm terrified because you know I'm the weird guy who comes to a dog park without a dog to stare at you like some kind of creep." "You're not a creep," I said, and I meant it. "You're just," I searched for the word, "brave," in a backwards kind of way. It takes guts to show up every day for something you want, even if you're scared. "I'm scared right now," he admitted. His hand was on the bench between us, and I could see the tension in his fingers. "I'm scared you're going to think I'm insane and I'll never see you again." I looked at him, at this man who had been a mystery and was now becoming real, solid, present. I reached out and put my hand over his. His skin was warm, his fingers long and artist-like. "I come here every day too," I said. "And maybe initially it was for Bailey, but these past few weeks I've been coming at exactly 6:15 because I know you'll be here at 6:20. So maybe we're both a little insane." His hand turned under mine, our palms touching, fingers intertwining. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. "Yeah?" "Yeah." I smiled at him, and he smiled back, and it felt like something beginning, something important. We sat there as the sun set, turning the sky orange and pink and purple, our hands linked on the bench while Bailey played himself into exhaustion. We talked, finally talked, and I learned that Silas was a freelance graphic designer who worked from home, which explained his flexible schedule. That he'd moved to the city 6 months ago and didn't know many people yet. That he'd been working up the courage to talk to me for weeks, planning conversations in his head that he never had the nerve to start. I told him about my soul-crushing marketing job, about how Bailey was the best impulse decision I'd ever made, about how I'd been so focused on building a career that I'd forgotten to build a life, about how lonely I'd been without really realizing it until I started looking forward to seeing a stranger at the dog park every evening. When the park started to empty and the streetlights flickered on, we finally stood up. Bailey was passed out at our feet, exhausted and happy. "So," Silas said, his hand still in mine, "can I get your number? Or is that moving too fast considering we just had our first conversation?" "You've been watching me for 3 months, I pointed out. "I think we've moved past traditional pacing." He laughed. That soft secret laugh I was already becoming addicted to. Fair point. I gave him my number. He texted me immediately so I'd have his, and then we just stood there, neither of us wanting to leave, both of us knowing we had to. "Same time tomorrow?" I asked. Silas grinned. "I'll be here, with or without you apparently." I kissed him then, just leaned in and pressed my lips to his, quick and soft and full of promise. He made this small, surprised sound, and then he was kissing me back, his free hand coming up to cut my face, gentle and sure. When we pulled apart, his eyes were wide. "Okay," he breathed. "That was okay." "Same time tomorrow," I repeated, and he nodded, speechless. That was 4 months ago. We still go to the dog park every day at 6:15. Silas brings coffee now, one for each of us, and we sit on our bench under the oak tree while Bailey plays. Sometimes we talk about our days, sometimes we sit in comfortable silence, sometimes we make out like teenagers until Martha and her corgis walk by, and she tells us to get a room. Last week, Silas moved into my apartment, the one with the squeaky floorboards and the shower that only works if you turn the knob exactly right. Bailey was thrilled. I was terrified and excited and so completely in love I could barely think straight. He still doesn't have a dog, though he's talking about adopting one. A rescue, he says, something small that Bailey can play with. I tell him he doesn't need an excuse to come to the dog park anymore, and he says he knows, but he wants one anyway. Wants to be the kind of person who gives a lonely dog a home, the way Bailey gave him the courage to finally talk to me. Sometimes I think about those 3 months of parallel existence, both of us showing up every day, orbiting each other, too scared to close the distance. I think about all the ways it could have gone differently. If Bailey hadn't dropped that ball at his feet, if Silas had given up after 2 months instead of 3, if I'd been less curious or more oblivious, but mostly I just feel grateful. Grateful for my ridiculous dog who has terrible boundaries but excellent instincts. Grateful for Silas's quiet courage, for the way he kept showing up even when it seemed hopeless. Grateful that sometimes the universe doesn't make you wait for the perfect moment, it just sends a golden retriever with a tennis ball to create one. We're at the dog park now, actually. It's 6:30, and the sun is setting, and Silas is laughing at something Bailey just did, some ridiculous spinning jump that makes no sense but perfectly captures his chaotic energy. And I'm watching Silas the way he used to watch me, with this overwhelming sense of tenderness and wonder that someone this incredible chose to sit on a bench every day just for the chance to see me. He catches me staring and raises an eyebrow. "What?" "Nothing," I say, but I'm smiling. Just thinking about the guy at the dog park who doesn't own a dog. He leans over and kisses me, soft and sweet. "Doesn't own a dog yet," he corrects. "And technically I'm the guy who lives with you now. The dog park thing is just our origin story. Best origin story ever," I say. Bailey barks his agreement, and we laugh, and the world feels exactly right. Total char count, 14,891.